One of the biggest complaints we hear about not-for-profit organisations is that they do not wind up when they should. There is a lot of good reasons why boards and CEOs would find closing an organisation incredibly hard to do. By the way, this is not a problem unique to not-for-profits. There are attributes about the not-for-profit sector, however, that make them incredibly hard to close. For example, even when the not-for-profit has been enormously successful and has achieved everything it set out to do, such as find a cure for a disease or support a minority group or even changes in the law that are required, closing the organisation is hard. It can be even harder and more difficult when you haven't achieved the mission you set out to achieve, and there is still a lot more work to do. If you're closing an organisation because it's financially unsustainable, it can really feel like a failure. If your organisation has been around for many years and there is a history of volunteers, donors, events and relationships that have had a massive contribution, it's going to be hard to let these go. Closing an organisation feels like letting these people down. But as hard as it can be, the primary responsibility of directors is to ensure that the organisation is doing the best it can for current and future beneficiaries. If your beneficiaries would get better outcomes from another organisation, in my view, you have an obligation to transfer your assets to that organisation and put your support behind it. That is, as directors, our obligation is to look at the present and the future and decide what is in the best interest for the people we serve. There can be many reasons organisations become unviable. Sometimes it can be as simple as the founding charismatic CEO leaves and a replacement can't be found. In other cases, the organisation loses its core funding or a competitor has entered the market. There are many other reasons, such as technology has overtaken the need for your service, or you can no longer get volunteers. Increasing costs of compliance, insurance and meeting regulatory requirements has been responsible for many closures. If the decision is taken to close, it is far better to do it sooner rather than later, so that as much value can be retained in the assets that are transferred. Organisations that continue to burn through resources in the hope that they can turn the organisation around or save jobs are not focusing on beneficiaries. It's not easy to know when your organisation has come to this point, and therefore it's a good idea to get some independent advice here. Once the decision is taken to wind up, the process can be quite straightforward. If there are operations that can be transferred, the process is much like a sale or merger. From a financial and legal point of view, the board should get advice on a range of issues, including long service liability, redundancy payments, payments in advance, contract obligations, and all other legal and financial obligations.